So we are now going to do a sponsored talk. We're very fortunate to have Jeromy Johnson and Rob Metzinger. Rob Metzinger is from Safe Living Technologies, SLT, if you haven't been to the exhibit hall. They're one of our really big sponsors, so I want to thank them. Thank you, Rob, very much. And this is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is kind of the how do you really identify exposures in the home and work environment. So come on up, Jeromy. And so who here has not seen Jeromy's TED Talk? Okay, so you've got a little homework to look at his TED Talk. That is important. And, there you are. Jeromy Johnson has a very fascinating story to tell because he was an engineer and a safe technology, now an engineer and a safe technology consultant. He wasn't always a safe technology consultant. He holds an advanced degree in civil engineering and worked in Silicon Valley's financial industry for 15 years. And then in 2011, he became electrically sensitive after extensive EMF exposure. And when you watch his TED Talk, you'll see what was underneath his bedroom. It will horrify you. It horrified me. I don't know if it'll horrify you. Jeromy now helps individuals and families reduce and mitigate EMF pollution through one-on-one consultations, his solutions-focused website, emfanalysis.com, his educational book, How to Find a Healthy Home, and his widely shared TEDx talk, Wireless Wake-Up Call. Last night, he was in here. He volunteered to come in here at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night to sweep the room, and he found that where our rogue EMR exposure was coming from was that little black box on the wall back there, which is a wireless clock. Really? You need a wireless clock? And the Dell desktop monitor. So he mitigated that, and he made the room so much safer for all of us. So we can thank him for that. He's ready. So just
okay. Well, good afternoon. It's great to be here. So I'm Jeromy, and I'm going to present with Rob Metzinger, and we're going to share how we help our electrically sensitive clients. And our hope is that this is going to help you in your medical practice, and that you can look to us as advisors when you're dealing with your electrically sensitive patients. So I'm going to give an overview of the EMF consulting process and share what I've learned in my journey being electrically sensitive, and also what I've learned working with my clients. And then Rob's going to share the specific meters and solutions that he provides. And then we'll have a Q&A, and I'm sure you'll have some great questions. So as you heard, my background is engineering. That's how I was educated. And then I worked in the Silicon Valley, but in the financial industry. So then when that bank of smart meters was installed, and it was actually 8 years ago this week, I became electrically sensitive. And that forced me to move back into the engineering side of things. Because I knew if I wanted to heal and if I wanted to have a good life, I had to learn this topic from the inside out. And that's what I've been focused on now for the past 8 years. And the last 5 years, I've been working one-on-one with families. And I've worked with approximately 500 electrically sensitive people, and I've communicated with thousands. So I hope to share with you some of the best of what I've learned. Now, as Lynn mentioned, I have 3 resources for you. And the first is my website. And this is where I've put the practical how-to articles that I've written. Everything from low EMF computing to low EMF internet, how to make your house low EMF, really how to live a low EMF lifestyle. And it's the best I could distill this information down, and it seems to help a lot of electrically sensitive people. The second thing is my TEDx talk. And if you ever have patients that have, okay, if you ever have patients that have skeptical family members, this is a good thing to share with them. Because when people can see that others are going through this, it seems to reduce that skepticism. And then finally, I have my book, and that's about how to find a low EMF home and how to make your current home more low EMF. I've tried to keep complex engineering and bring it into the book in a correct way, but also write it in a way that someone with a non-technical background could understand. And it seems to be helping people who need to have a low EMF house. And as a gift for everyone at this conference, I'd like to offer a free copy of that book. So you can, so you can email me through my website. I made these cards, which are out in the hallway, which you can pick up, and then it has my email on it. And just send me an email, and I'll either email you the PDF, or I'll send you, I can send you the paperback when that comes out. Okay. So when I work with clients, the first thing I want to know is why they're electrically sensitive. And I've found that there's at least 5 reasons why people come to me, and I want to share what they are. The first is obviously they've had a big EMF exposure. They had to make a smart meters next to their bedroom. They live next to a cell tower. IT professionals, even cell tower installers have contacted me. And something's happened with their nervous system or with their body where it doesn't seem to want to heal, and they're going to need to have a low EMF life in order to be healthy. The second way is people just have a chronic illness, Lyme disease, autoimmune conditions, neurological conditions, and of course EMFs just make all of those much worse. Then there's people who are chemically sensitive and mold sensitive. They tend to go to electrical sensitivity at some point in their life. And I'm like that. As a kid, I was chemically sensitive. If my mom used the wrong detergent, my skin would break out. So that makes sense that I would probably move into that later in life. Then there's also people who are poor detoxifiers. And it seems like we're learning more about that through DNA tests. And I test in that category too, where I'm just a slow detoxifier. So the way I've improved my health, and I'm probably in the best health of my life right now, but I'm also still electrically sensitive. But the way I've improved is through detoxing. That's definitely helped. And then there's people, and this is probably 10 to 20% of people who contact me, who seem to have a limbic system dysfunction. And I always want to ask if someone has OCD or they have a lot of anxiety, because if that's the case, the last thing I want to do is have them get the meters or do a bunch of shielding, because that actually makes them worse. So instead, I refer them to one of the retraining programs, limbic system retraining programs, or a coach that actually does that. So when people become electrically sensitive, they have to develop a whole new worldview, one in which wireless technology is no longer safe. And that can be really discombobulating for people. I know that from myself and from the people I've worked with, those first 6 to 12 months are usually really difficult, and their life goes in disarray. So that's why I'm really happy that this conference is happening, because now there's going to be a lot of medical doctors that understand this, and you're going to be able to provide the coaching and the support and even the patience that electrically sensitive people need in order to start to recover. If I can share this story of 8 years ago when I went to my first doctor at Kaiser, he said, "You should probably move to a deserted island." And, that probably wasn't bad advice, but it left me feeling more isolated and more like I didn't have anything I could do. So so the more support you can provide, and the more you can acknowledge this condition, the better people are gonna be. It seems like once someone is acknowledged that this is real and that they're going through it and that they can get better, then it really seems to be the start of their healing process. 'Cause I can't tell you how many people have contacted me and they've said that I'm the first person that didn't think they were crazy. So that's, and I just can hear it in their voice that then they're ready to start doing something. So how do we help people with electrical sensitivity? And in my experience, just from my own life and in helping people, the only thing that works from my perspective is the engineering approach when you're dealing with EMFs. And that's where you have to measure, and you need to measure with good meters. If you don't have good equipment, then it would be like doing blood tests on equipment that you can't trust. You simply wouldn't be able to do your work if that was the case. So we have good meters, and we see what's in the environment, and you measure 4 types of EMFs, which I'll get into. And then once you've measured the environment, you eliminate all the low-hanging fruit. Sometimes there's a simple wiring error that needs to be corrected. As we learned last night, there were 2 things back there that were filling this entire room with really powerful Wi-Fi. And Ray Peeler and I were able to find that. And that's what we do in every home. Most homes right now have 5, 10, sometimes 20 sources of RF that we have to eliminate. And once you eliminate them, then the entire house is much cleaner. So then after you eliminate things, you reduce what's left. And then what you can't reduce and eliminate, you finally shield. And shielding is always the last step because it's expensive, and sometimes there's deleterious effects. So you always got to be careful with shielding. And then once you do that, you remeasure to make sure that what you've done works properly. And that's basically the engineering approach, and it works time and time again. So as Deborah mentioned, distance is key. That's an important term in any EMF mitigation. And it's not just for cell phones, it's for power lines. The more distance you can create, the better. It's from the electrical wiring in your house. It's from your neighbor's Wi-Fi. Distance is really important with EMFs because the power density normally decreases exponentially from the source. So there's 4 types of EMFs. You have the low frequency magnetic and electric fields. They come from power lines and the electrical wiring in the house, from some appliances. And then you have the mid-frequencies, and the engineering term is EMI, or electromagnetic interference. It's also called power quality or dirty electricity. And that can come from solar technology, from dimmer switches, from compact fluorescent light bulbs. And then finally, you have the radio frequency and microwave technologies. That's all the wireless technologies. And of course, 5G is part of that. And just to say one thing about 5G, it seems to be this topic that's really bringing this issue into society's awareness, and that's really good. And there's people doing tremendous work to bring it into our awareness. But from a consulting perspective and from a health perspective of your patients, we have to look at all of the fields, because oftentimes you can get rid of most of the wireless in your house. And unless you have a cell tower outside the house, the wireless component can be really low. But if you still have high magnetic and electric fields and you still have EMI issues, you're going to have electrically sensitive patients. And I've seen that over and over. And these fields sometimes can be even worse than the wireless. So these are the meters that I use for myself and for my clients. This is a set of meters which is almost as good as the professional meters, but they're a little bit cheaper. So if you were to get a set of meters that you would have at your practice that you might loan out to your clients, this is what I would recommend. And the first one that measures all the microwave technologies, Rob has actually designed and manufactured this meter, and I think it's the best consumer RF meter on the market right now. The readings there, I'm below 1 microwatt per meter squared. This is in my home office, and that's ideal. If you can get your electrically sensitive patients below about 10 microwatts per meter squared, that's generally pretty good. The second meter, that's how I measure magnetic fields. That's a 3-axis meter. And if most people need it below 0.1 milligauss, but some people will need it even much lower than that. And then finally on the right, that's how I measure electric fields. And I'm below 1 volt per meter there, which is ideal for both sleeping and for your home office. An interesting thing about electric fields, I find that that's what affects our sleep the most. If I can cut the circuit breakers, and if I'm sleeping where the electric fields are really low, that's when I get good sleep. The last 2 meters here, this is how I measure EMI, or dirty electricity. A simple old AM radio is one of my favorite meters to have because it measures the EMI that's radiated out into the environment from both the hot wire and the neutral. And that's, from an engineering perspective, it's differential mode and common mode. Now, the meter on the right, that just measures what's on the hot wire. And the thing that's important about this is that some of the capacitive filters, they will move some of that EMI from the hot wire down to the neutral. So it's still on the circuit. So that's why I really like the AM radio. And what I do with that is I'll take it to the circuit panel and I'll turn off all the circuits, and then I'll turn on each circuit one by one, and I'll see which one's creating noise. And then I'll go on that circuit and I'll see if there's something plugged in that is creating that. Sometimes it's a simple device that's plugged in, you just get rid of it and then the noise goes completely away. And if you can't do that, then you will isolate that source within the house. So one of the questions that you'll probably get a lot of, and you've probably already gotten this, is what product should I buy to protect myself? And I simply don't recommend any of them. I've been contacted. So I've probably been contacted by 100 companies that they have some type of product, whether you just put it in your house or you wear it. And sometimes they want me to write about it or promote it or at least test it. And I've tested many of them, and they've never helped my electrical sensitivity. So the only time I could see where it would be helpful is if you have a patient that you know is overly fearful, and sometimes a placebo will bring him out of that. But for the most part, those products are they're just keeping people from really taking the real steps that they need to take to have a low EMF lifestyle. Yeah. And of course, that's part of, as a society, we're all still in this grief phase. And we go through these processes of grief and denial and bargaining. They're all parts of that. And the society is going to have to go through that. But from a big picture, what if we had, quantum scalar sacred geometry pendants for secondhand smoke, or for vehicle emissions? That wouldn't have worked. So we have to do the real work of bringing this awareness into society, and I think that eventually that will create the change, which will create the regulatory change to reduce these emissions. And I think that's the way we have to go. So I have 8 steps that have helped me, and that's how I help my clients. The first 4 are things that I will help people with, and the second 4 are things that you as a physician will help people with. The first 2 are critical. I know medical doctors that won't treat a patient until they have a low EMF home and until they have a sleep sanctuary, because any treatment won't work. And I can attest to that. If I sleep in a good environment, I just do way better, and I'm resilient throughout the day, and I can handle a lot more. So with these steps, the first two, that's one of the main things I help people with, and I do my work remotely. I do Skype sessions and phone sessions. But I usually then I have a network of consultants that I trust that have done this work for many years, that are some of the best in the country. So then I refer them to whatever area my client is at. A lot of the people are in the room today, like Ray Peeler and Ryan Ashley and Liz Menkes and Eric Windheim. So they just do great work. And as Deborah also said, having consultants and building biologists come into people's homes is going to be important. The third step is that we help people to reduce and minimize and sometimes completely eliminate their wireless use. And that can be difficult for a lot of people right now because of the addiction component. But it's possible. For myself, I haven't used a cell phone for anything more than an occasional text message in 7 years. So I haven't taken a phone call, and I haven't used data. And that's helped me, because I could feel it. 8 years ago, I could feel it so intensely that I just stopped using it. And that's kept me from having that addiction component too. It's the same thing with Wi-Fi. I haven't used Wi-Fi in 7 years. But I have my website and my work, and I do all that with wired technology. And that gets to the fourth step, where usually people, in order to still be productive in society and still have work, they need to have some type of computing. And a lot of electrically sensitive clients, they usually end up having to work from home if they have that luxury, because most offices now are not good for them. So that's one of the main questions I get, is how am I going to create a low EMF computer setup? And again, my website walks people through everything I figure out for myself, I share on that website. So that can help people to have a low EMF computer setup. And I do the same testing with computing. I measure all 4 types of electromagnetic fields, and I make sure they're all as low as possible. Now, these last steps, these are in addition to any type of treatment that, of course, you're gonna be treating people in the way that you work, and I would just add in that this is what's worked for me and a lot of my clients. Seems like when we have good detox and exercise protocols, great nutrition and supplementation, a low stress lifestyle, whether it's meditation or just having a supportive community, these are all important. And of course, some people are going to need some of the limbic system retraining. And then the last step, it's people are going to go on a journey with this. I certainly have. And they're going to learn a lot. And it's going to be healing for people to be able to share what they learn. And, just from my own perspective, between my TEDx talk and my website, I've now reached a few million people. And if we have, thousands of people going through this process that share what they learn with their communities, that's how we're going to bring this into mainstream awareness. And that's eventually how we're going to have a healthier society. So, thank you.